Did your family worry a lot about like bombings or?
You know, yeah, I think there was an undercurrent. Nobody ever talked about it very much, but I think there was a lot of sensitivity and worry under the undercurrent about the possibility of atomic war.
Yeah.
You know, and that was really the big thing that hit everybody. And all the Cold War did was, in some ways, it was an attempt by, I think, both sides, to be perfectly honest, to avoid an atomic war. But nobody wanted to give up power, so it was like we kept negotiating, pussyfooting, grabbing pieces of ground, giving it up. You know, it was just an ongoing.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember they threw up the Berlin Wall, and it was just a game that got played over the years. And I think the big worry was that somebody along the line would get careless or impatient and do something that would be very difficult to live with, like start throwing missiles or atomic pineapples or something like that around.
Yeah.
That was always the big worry. I think that's gone away a lot, mostly in the last 20 years. I think most of that fear has gone away. Although I think little people like Iran and that crazy man that runs that one tends to raise that fear a little bit, because if he gets nuclear pineapples to throw around the world, he might do it. He's the kind of idiot that just might do it because he just needs to show everybody how big and tough he is. So that's scary right now. But I think, I saw some people that built bomb shelters, and as recent as year 2000 when Y2K came, I saw people all of a sudden get excited. We're going to store all sorts of goods away, and they bought generators like they're going out of style because power plants may shut down, and I think that's kind of a leftover of the Cold War mentality.
Yeah. How old were you when it started, or when it was happening?
Actually, the Cold War started just about at the end of World War II, and I was about 16 then. And so we began to see all the heaving and shoving going on between the U.S. and the Russians basically at that time. And especially as Germany was defeated, and immediately the Russians and the Americans got in there and start pawing over the remains of Germany and trying to figure out who's going to control what. And I remember the Berlin airlift, which was I think she's taping me, but I'm not sure. Berlin airlift, where they mustered just great, huge numbers of transport aircraft, and they flew supplies into our portion of Berlin because the Russians had shut off the roads going in there. So we went nuts and started flying all this stuff in there, and it was quite an event. If you can find some writings about the Berlin airlift, it will read pretty interesting.
What were your family's techniques for if there was a bombing? What would you do? Did you have something planned out?
We never made any great preparations. Even prior to that, when World War II started, and we were fearful that the Japanese were going to invade the Washington coast, and in fact, there was a little bit of evidence that there might have been some minor activity along the Washington coast. And I think a lot of the citizens in the state of Washington had weapons at bay, ready to start shooting if some Japanese showed up over the hill. And part of that paranoia read itself out in how we treated the Japanese that were living in our communities when World War II started. And that was ugly. That was really ugly. I don't know if you read, there's a couple of books about that. I'm trying to remember. One of them was written about a scenario in Seattle. Something about a hotel and street of, I can't remember the name of it, but anyhow, it talked about a Japanese family that was relocated out of their circumstances. And I mean, they were ripped up lock, stock, and barrel. They were left with nothing. Basically, the clothes on their back and maybe a bag full of clothes and stuff. You know, that kind of fear that people exhibited. It's not not unique of just the Cold War, but it actually started, I think, in that area. We saw a lot of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you. So where did you grow up when this was happening?
In Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. How old were you when it began or started?
Probably 9 years old.
Okay.
Because I was in,
Did your family did you know of anyone who had a bomb shelter or thought about that?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Like any of your friends or?
We had my mother's friends built a bomb shelter, and they actually sold them as a unit, and then they could bury them.
Oh wow.
Concrete.
Oh yeah. Were you afraid of a bombing happening at any time, or did you not really think of it much?
We have to think about it because we had that duck and cover at school.
Oh yeah.
We'd have these drills.
Yeah. So
I wasn't afraid.
Yeah. When were you first introduced to the duck and cover?
Probably about 9 years old, because we were in a relocation camp before that.
Oh, okay. What did your family think of doing at home if something happened?
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing.
So they didn't think about it much. They weren't afraid.
They did not think about it much.
Wow. Okay. I don't know what else. You could just talk a little more about your family and how your lifestyle and stuff during the Cold War.
It was a little hard because it was after the Second World War.
Yeah.
We had to start our life all over again.
Yeah.
After being incarcerated for 4 years. So my father decided to start anew in Ohio instead of going back to California. So it was a little hard. I mean, we were really poor.
Yeah. All right, thanks.